Beth Muha from our Human Resources Office, Seth Grossman, Chief of Staff, who oversees our Human Resources Division, among other portfolio areas, Catherine Simpson, who is with the Human Resources Office as well, and myself, Fanta Av. We appreciate all of you being online with us today. And then again, a few housekeeping. We will be recording this and we'll be posting it because we know not everybody was able to join us. And so we'll make sure that that is available to you. The format of this afternoon is really sort of is twofold. One, to give you updates as managers. And then the second most important is to field as many of your questions so that we know what's on your mind. And we can try to answer as many as we can. And for those questions for which we do not have answers, that we can chase those down. Safe to say that today, Wednesday, is a big day on many levels. We're now probably in day 3, and in some cases, day 4 of telework for many of our staff and the workforce. So we're interested in hearing from you how that's going and get some of your feedback around that. This is also a big day because it's our first day to officially go online for all of our courses at the undergraduate and graduate level. So we know there's a lot going on, both on the administrative side as well as for faculty, and we're going to continue to monitor how the transition to online is going and get feedback. I know for all of you who are working in the academic units, you've been incredibly busy with making sure that we get the online to the right place, in addition to everything else that you've been doing. So first and foremost, let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for the heavy lift. Thank you for the patience. Thank you for the problem-solving orientation that you've all taken. And so I'm really glad that we could at least have a moment to get a sense from all of you on how things are going on the ground, and that we are all on the same page. A few updates just to get us started. First, again, as I think you're all aware, we are continuing to monitor very closely the situation in Washington, D.C. Since we had sort of our last communication, we know that things like restaurants have now been closed, and folks are being encouraged to really, in many ways, minimize their movements as much as possible to mitigate for any community spread. And we continue to encourage our community to do the same, and we continue to encourage all of you to please continue to practice social distancing. And if there are any situations that come up, you would have received from Seth Grossman and Dan Myers communication about how to report to Human Resources any situations that have come up so that we can keep track of that. Those were communications that were sent to you. We've heard from you that there's a lot of communication going on. We understand and we're trying to coordinate, but we feel that as things are developing very fast, we want to get to you as soon as we can and provide you with as much information that is readily available while we continue our Monday communications. That will be a regular communication with a lot of information. That is some of the updates that we have. And with that, I would like to stop there and have my colleagues who are primarily with Human Resources provide some additional updates, and then we're going to go into questions and answers. Thanks again.
Thank you, Fanta and Seth. Cole, I wondered if you could advance the slides to slide one more slide. Thanks again for everybody pulling together and quickly working through a lot of things, HR related and campus related over the last week. As of today, we are happy to report that a majority of your departments have submitted their operating continuity plans and employee classification reports. Those were foundational to helping us identify staff to work, have presence on campus, and those that could telework. As of today, we have some 1,900 temporary telework agreements in place. And every day that number is growing exponentially as more students and managers are working together to find assignments for them on a remote basis. And so that we do see that number growing. On the slide, you see a snapshot of something that you can find on the HR website. We have created a hub for extended telework, though that includes guidelines. These are the headings for those guidelines that you see here on the slide. And we really do encourage you to take a look at them, to adopt the practices. You know, it is unprecedented that we would have a majority of our staff working remotely. You know, our job over these some weeks is to keep all of the core operations of the university running, but not from our offices. And so it's really critical that we try new and different ways, as I know you already are, of working together effectively. This really means a strong emphasis on communication, team communication, supervisor and employee communication, et cetera. And I think that you will find these guidelines helpful. If we have missed pieces, if you have best practices that you would like to share with us, things that are working well, we'd like to hear from you as well so that we can continue to curate all the best practices for the community to learn from each other as well. We've also added FAQs, so you will see those on the HR homepage. Cole, if you can advance the slides. One of the recurring questions is, I guess we have actually here something I wanted to share. The School of Education is sharing some of their success stories. And so they took this great shot earlier today when they had their team meeting. They use Zoom and they are becoming very resourceful and would serve as a resource to you as well. Again, if you would want to share photos, stories, tips of your respective teams so that we could share that with each other, that would be great. You can send them to Catherine Simpson or Shelley D'Amico in Human Resources. If you could advance the slide. One of the recurring questions that we would like to provide some maybe clarification support to has to do with the ongoing challenge of balancing remote work with any family care responsibilities. That could include children at home, elder care responsibilities, and other duties included. And so we are asking managers at this time to explore all flexible arrangements and to feel empowered to do that, to help your staff maintain productivity while balancing their family obligations. Some things you might think about are offering flex hours or flex days. Other folks may be interested in the Bright Horizons program. They have added a piece that we wanted to make you aware of, where you could be reimbursed for up to $100 a day for bringing a caretaker into your home, particularly if they don't have somebody available in the network. And each of us have like 15 days of benefit available to us in the Bright Horizons plan. So we encourage you or your teams to explore that as an option. We have made a commitment that pay will continue for all full and regular part-time staff during this period. So it really is in our best interest to work very carefully, closely, flexibly with staff to find different work for them to do from their remote location. Cole, could you advance? Some guidance, again, that's available on the website, but we'll share it here as well. You know, this is a new arrangement with most of the organization working remotely. We encourage you to take this time in these first days of our remote arrangement to set expectations. Staff have told us that they really would like to understand what your expectations of them are. If anything changes, what the priorities are for their work. how to best communicate with you and with the team. Try hard to keep the staff engaged. We do recommend, especially in these early days, checking in daily. I don't know if all staff who have teleworked formally would have had a daily check-in, but in this new environment where we're moving very quickly, maintaining all university operations, etc., it really is important to stay in touch. And for them to bring concerns to you as soon as they know and have them so that you can troubleshoot. We don't have the opportunity as we did formerly to run into each other in the hall and troubleshoot and problem solve or meet up somewhere in the office. And so using video conferencing and chat channels are really, really critical and useful at this time. If you could advance the slide. We ask that you remain positive, especially in this period of uncertainty, and set the tone at the top for your team, as I know you are. I think employees are eager to telework, and they are eager to learn the technology and to work effectively with you. So we are all in this together, and if we approach it in that spirit, I think success will prevail for sure. And then always a good reminder that, to focus on results and the outcomes one is accomplishing rather necessarily than on FaceTime, which we won't have the benefit of these days. Lots of opportunities for self-care and to help manage stress. This is important for you personally, and then also, again, to set the tone at the top for your own team. Getting some fresh air and eating well and trying to get as much sleep as you're able, etc. And know that the FSAP is still operational for anyone who may want to talk with Dale. And so she's working in a virtual fashion. You can make appointments as you would have formally. And then, of course, your medical providers might be a good resource in the event you would need to or want to talk with them. If you could advance the slide. I'm on HR updates. Just a couple things. The HR office is fully operating. There is somebody there a few days a week. If you can go advance again, maybe one slide there, Cole. There's this self-care and stress management slide. Maybe one more, please. So the office does have a presence on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 1, and we're there to help with a range of things, including I-9s and for national processing. You can contact Chris Rasnick if you need assistance or if you have new hires who need to complete their I-9s. We will be moving the orientation to a virtual format starting on the 23rd. We will be providing guidance also to you in terms of how you would onboard a person virtually. Normally, of course, they would be in the office and they'd have time to meet with their coworkers and learn about their position. In this case, that's not going to be possible by and large, and so more information will be coming. Jennifer Scott on the HR team is going to be staffing temporary work opportunities for students. While we were able to create remote opportunities for many of our students, others are looking for employment. You may have opportunities in your departments, and so we are asking for you to let us know if you do so that we can employ students, additional students on a remote basis. And as Fanta noted, if employees or those in their immediate families have been diagnosed, or if you have any questions about those having had contact with somebody with COVID-19, please contact Employee Relations. You can contact Deidre directly, myself, anyone on the Employee Relations team, or use the Employee Relations at american.edu address. Cole, yep, thank you. Today, some of you have received some guidance, very detailed guidance about student employment and, again, temporary student hiring. That will be posted on the HR page shortly. And we do recommend that you review that and see what questions that you might have. As I mentioned earlier, department level onboarding guidance is forthcoming, and we're beginning to get questions about PMP and merit and those sorts of things, and how if that in any way will the expanded telework impact, or what guidance might we have there. And so more information coming your way. If you can advance, I think we're probably coming to a good point now to hear from you and see what questions you're fielding, what challenges you're having, and see what we might be able to do to answer those today.
Thank you, Beth. For these couple of updates, I think we want to spend the rest of our time really to hear from you. We're particularly interested and curious to hear how
the transition has been going with telework and with all of the different aspects of it. The other piece that I did want to raise, given that this is the webinar for managers, is the contingency plan that you all completed on behalf of your units, and to really begin to think about, who would need to step in when, if that's needed, and at what point within your own units and divisions. I think that's something that we all need to be thinking about as we continue to see new developments within this area of work. But more than anything else, we want to hear from you about what you're hearing, and also to really get the lay of the land on the ground, given that for those of us who are on campus, I've walked around the campus, and certainly our buildings are more or less empty. And so we're interested in hearing what you're experiencing, and also, more importantly, your main questions. The first question is, if an essential employer starts displaying symptoms, can manager tell them to go home? That's one of the first questions that is being asked. So if an essential employer starts displaying symptoms, can manager tell them to go home? The answer is yes. Not only can we urge you to tell the employees to please head home, and in heading home to first and foremost take care of themselves, and to follow up with their primary care physician, and to report this information to human resources. It's important that we continue to track what are the activities around this. And I know that employees may have some concerns around sick leave and all of these different things, and I'll let Beth speak a little bit to that. But the answer is yes, please. We want them to take care of themselves, and also we want to really do everything we can to mitigate for potential community spread and things like that. Beth?
Sick leave and all of that.
So we, of course, will use sick leave when staff are ill, or if they have an ill family member. And so sick leave's available for both. If one doesn't have enough sick leave to cover those first 2 weeks that one needs before short-term disability, we have a leave share bank, and we will be making sure that we share and allocate leave to those individuals so that their pay continues. We're doing the same for regular part-time staff. So some part-time staff accrue leave, sick leave, some do not. But there too, we will be providing sick leave to part-time staff who haven't enough to cover their illness, or if they have to care for an ill family member.
Thank you. The other question that's come in is the question of if AU extends the telework environment beyond April 6th, will an extension be granted for additional Bright Horizon benefits?
And we are exploring that with Bright Horizons. That has come up a couple times, and Anne on the team is exploring with Bright Horizons the option of extending beyond 15 days. Well, more information to follow.
This is another question around Bright Horizon. If we're social distancing, if we're social distancing, feels hesitant to use Bright Horizon or other childcare, AU stands on this. This is a social distancing issue, and some of the other organizations like Bright Horizons, they want to know AU stands on that.
They do have protocols. I know that they will not send a caregiver to the home if somebody is ill. And so there are some common, sort of common sense limitations to that.
I want to go back to the question of
if someone is not well and the managers have to send them home, are we forcing them to use sick leave, or will there be other alternatives available?
Well, if they are sick, we would have them use their sick leave. If they don't have sick leave, we will don't get donations to them from the sick leave bank.
Can you clarify the temporary work opportunities? Is this suitable for small short-term projects, small couple of hours research project? Can you describe in detail how it would work? This is about the temporary work opportunities.
That's exactly what we're thinking, what you're thinking, that you would have some research projects possibly. You may have, operating procedures to write. I know in HR we have lots of opportunities for good writers to help us get this information out to the community quickly. So I think even, new opportunities are coming up that we hadn't thought of before, and they would be at least for these 3 weeks or through the semester, because the students really won't be back here on campus for the rest of the semester. So short term through, finals and such.
If you have a full-time staff member who is biweekly and doesn't have 35 hours of work per week that they can complete remotely, how should they complete their timesheet?
We'll give a little more guidance in the next couple days, and so more information coming on that. But we do encourage you to find, again, other projects that may have been, on hold in your department that you might deploy them to do, to be creative about finding work to fill the balance of their week.
I'm going to turn to some questions having to do with student staff. And the first one is, for work study students, is there a way to see how much more of their award they have? This is about finding out the balance so that people can plan accordingly.
And that question has come up too. I don't know if we have figured out that report quite yet, but we do understand that's a need, and that is on our list to tackle.
Again, having to do with student staff, is the sick leave bank available to part-time student workers?
Part-time staff, student workers, no, it is generally not available to the student workers. Some students accrue sick leave if they work 26 or more hours a week. So there could be some student workers actually who have sick leave available to them.
Okay, this is, can staff work remotely from anywhere, or should they stay close to campus? Some staff would like to go home and be with their families. They're able to do their job from anywhere.
I think that's fine. I think that if you are more comfortable, being in another town, etc., we're okay with that too. We want you to remain productive and contributing to keeping our operations, up and running.
This is a question about parking. There is still a question about parking on campus. Is it correct that parking is not being enforced? The answer is that is the plan, is to move to a situation where parking will not be enforced during this period of time until April 6th date, which is the date that we're encouraging people to telework and all of that. So know that more information will be forthcoming, but yes, that is the plan. Other questions, other comments? While I have you all here, again, let me remind our managers and all to please continue to look at the COVID-19 website. The team in communications and others have been feverishly putting down FAQs, and we want to make sure that we continue to stay abreast of the FAQs that keep coming up. For example, we've updated it with the student refund, proration of refunds for students, because that's been a big question. Also, questions related to move out, etc., have all been posted there, and so we want to make sure that you're aware of that. The next question is regarding employees who are underperforming and were poised to require a performance improvement plan, a PIP. How do managers maintain standards and enforce needed deliverables during this time? And I think this is this piece around how do we deal with performance in, before, and then what does it look like now?
And I would say Brenda Harner on the HR team would be a wonderful resource to you if you find yourself in that situation, to help you navigate through a PIP while somebody is working remotely. So I would say that probably takes some one-on-one discussion, and I would encourage you to contact Brenda directly.
While I wait for the next question, the other thing I wanted to cover with this group of managers is that as we move to the telework model is, again, given that this is the first day for online for our students, is how we continue to, we're talking about having on the website a central place where all the services that are open and the way that they'll be accessible to students can be made available. So you may be hearing from us to collect that information from our various areas, but we do need to figure out a way to facilitate for students the access to that information quickly, and we'll be looking to the departments to help us with that. So I just wanted to raise that. Another question is, do PMP goal needs to be recalibrated or suspended until we return to campus, especially roles that are usually face-to-face or external?
And that too, I know that came from staff council, which is wonderful. We met with them yesterday and some questions were generated by the group, and that is one of them. And we are working on some guidelines as well, Catherine and Matt in HR. So more information forthcoming.
How can I donate sick leave now?
There is a link to the donation. You can donate sick leave by going onto that main HR page. There's an FAQ that has to do with sick leave, and there's a link in there. And there's probably a link someplace else. Catherine, would you know where that link is? Or Anne, if you're on the call, give some guidance here.
As a follow-up to the call, this is Anne.
Muted. She probably can't.
We'll send the link to everybody who's on the call, and
we do encourage any and everyone who is able to donate sick leave. Certainly, we do encourage that. Just waiting for. So another question: what happens after someone is posted to the temporary work ops? Walk through the steps. In other words, people wanting to understand what can they expect and what would be the next steps once they've been posted to the temporary work opportunity.
Hi, everybody. A little technical difficulty there. Jennifer, again, on the HR website, you will see some FAQs. There is one easy to fill out simple form if you can describe what the assignment is for us. And we will post that for a student-facing job page. Students, then we will communicate those opportunities to them and have them fill out a short application. So it's very similar. We're going to use A Successful You, a system that we all know and works well. And but those opportunities will be made available directly to the students who are seeking employment. And Jennifer will be matching up and spearheading that. If you have additional questions, I would encourage you to send an email to her directly.
The other question is, what if it isn't possible for a parent to work 35 hours a week, even with flex schedule? How do we have to use vacation or unpaid leave?
And I think we are working on the answers to those questions as well. So more information coming your way.
And we've gotten a lot of questions around families, given that, children are out of school and all of that. This whole question around how you balance, the work obligations with the family obligations and everything are certainly questions that have come up. And so, as Beth said, as those questions come up and they're being responded to, we will make sure to keep you abreast of those, and it will be part of the FAQ as well. But we hear you. Just waiting for the next question. That's all. So the next question again is parking reimbursement refunded, charge for parking monthly, will payroll staff deduction prorated. We will be posting on the FAQ the status of parking. And what I can say to you right now, the goal, the decision is not around reimbursement or refunds. So I just want to be very transparent. I know this is going to come as a disappointment to some, but I'd like to be transparent about some of these things. And so I'm just going to say that since I have those of you on the line here.
I know that also many of you have been fielding questions of students and student wages and all of that.
You saw the slide from Beth. that talks about the different ways we're looking at that. Right now, we're trying to get things in different orders. One is, let's make sure all those who can telework do that and that they get situated, that our core services continue to function the way they need to. Now that students are back in classes effective today, we're going to continue to monitor that. We are, of course, we have a lot of students who depend on student wages. We're asking people to be creative in the ways that they can, understanding that it may not be possible in all cases. And so we will figure out what are some possibilities there. But that's a slower process. As you can imagine, there's a lot of things that we have to juggle. Would there be guidance from HR on best practices for telework?
We have placed some of those best practices on the HR website, and I think we have 11 of them. And if you find that we have a gap somewhere, if you'll let us know, and we certainly can add. We'd also like to share what's working well and what you're finding is working well within your own teams, and share that information as well.
So some of the questions, for example, when to contact staff, appropriate times, how to build teams, setting limits with your supervisor. Let me just say, as a supervisor, because we're all learning together, we're asking people to be patient. I think, again, there's so many things that are moving all at once that I will ask and continue to ask that as we transition to what is a new model for all, that we do try to be patient with each other and, again, continue to some goodwill of each other in this process.
I would also say that, this is the time in these early days to set expectations, your expectations of the team, and to keep those lines of communication open. A little bit of this might vary based on the team that you're part of, but we are hoping that managers will take this opportunity to set the tone at the top and to lead those discussions to make sure that everyone on the team is aware of what is being expected of them, what kind of turnaround time you're expecting when you possibly place a call or an inquiry to them, what the work hours would be. We assume that they're normal, but if anybody is using any kind of flex time, that needs to be approved with their supervisor. So I guess the short of it is, it's most important that every manager take this time in these first few days to set those expectations with each member of your team.
The question is, again, people are anticipating what should we be thinking about after April 5th. One is, will there be consideration given to extending telework to the end of the semester to staff? To be determined is really the answer. As we have said before, right now we're looking at up to this date, understanding that we continue to closely monitor the situation and to see what's afoot. And so we will be talking through those and seeing what comes next. But I know people are already beginning to anticipate what happens after April 5th. Another question related to this is, managers who supervise staff in high risk category, should they return to campus after April 6th? Again, we want to keep in mind that those who are high risk, we want to make sure that those folks really take care of themselves, and that we are cognizant of that. And so that, again, is to be determined. But we know that people are beginning to ask questions about April 5th, and know that the cabinet and others will be taking that we'll be looking at that very, very soon. Thank you. The other question is, how is new hire orientation being facilitated for new hires scheduled to start on Monday?
We are going to have a virtual new hire orientation, and we've reached out to all of those who were scheduled. So they should have the information that they need to patch on to a virtual orientation. I think it's going to run for a few hours, and we're working with our IT partners to run sort of technology piece of that in the afternoon. It will be on the regularly scheduled days. The days aren't changing. It just will be a virtual format.
Will there be leave carryover? Will the leave carryover be increased to more than 105 hours due to this situation? No, the answer is no to that question. That is not the plan. Again, this is not something I think any of us could have predicted in so many ways, but also these things about leave carryover and so forth have also other, sort of consequences and things that we have to be considering as well. But that is not the plan at this time. I know that things are changing daily, but staff are worried about layoffs. This is a question that's come up, things are changing daily and staff are worried about layoffs. Again, I will also let Seth chime in. We are committed to doing everything we can. This is unfolding, as you know, as we all know, but I think that's been the commitment on the part of the institution to do what we can, and so we certainly understand that right now people are apprehensive and there are lots of questions, but that's sort of where we are. Are full-time employees who have not completed probation be eligible for the sick leave donation bank?
Yes, we will make it available to those individuals as well.
What about staff with gym membership on campus? Will monthly deduction stop until we return? That's the first time I've heard this question come up, and we'll need to ask and see what's going on there. So we'll make note of this question. This question had not come up before, and this is why it's important to get these webinars and others so we can hear. So we'll be back about this specific question. We don't know the answer to that. What happens if a professor gets sick while teaching online? How should school handles? This question has come up on the academic affairs side, and our colleagues in academic affairs are working on those contingency, and we'll be working with the respective deans and others on what would be the plan. Some of what's been advanced is having some faculty guest lecture in those instances. And so they've very much have been thinking about that and are looking at what are the different modalities to help with this. And so know that it has been on the plate for academic affairs, and they've started to look at what some of those options might be. We are recruiting for a position. Should we put on hold? Great question. This question about recruitment cycle and should we put on hold? What we talked about is that all of the vice presidents will be receiving the list of positions within their respective areas, including also the provost area, so that we can find out, more importantly, what are the positions that we've already finished recruitment, and it's about completing that, what is pending, what is on hold. And I think all of us would be having conversations with our key management team around these pieces and see what makes the most sense. The university, we did not want to come up with a central approach to this because it really varies by units and so forth, but that will be conversation that cabinet members and provosts will be having with their leadership team, but it's an important question. The other thing that we're really interested in is, again, we want to find out from you, how are things going? Again, this is day 3, maybe day 4 of teleworking. We have had always some folks who've been teleworking, but this is the first time that we've gone to this scale, and we're really interested in hearing from you. What are the challenges? What opportunities you've seen with it? So if you can give us a sense of that, we would very much appreciate that. This is an interesting question while we get the temperature, and these are things that are not unexpected or unusual. Can you speak to supervisor micromanagement versus helpful inquiries? Important that staff not feel micromanaged by numerous check-in, but that managers feel updated. Again, we are all learning as we go. So, what may seem to one person as micromanagement will be seen by another person as I'm trying to check in, and there's a lot of balls in the air that we're trying to catch at the same time. It will be a work in progress. And I think one way that I would suggest is that it's important to have those conversations to kind of help understand expectations on both sides. But it is a learning curve for all. And so some of these things, I think we will see some of this come up. But again, we're asking people to have the conversations to continue to calibrate and so forth. But it is important for managers and others to make sure that that there's a work continuity plan, particularly with our students and others.
And it is.
I would add, Fanta, it's sort of an unprecedented time, right? We've never had the majority of our staff working remotely to continue our operations. And so, yes, I would agree, be patient with each other. in the last some days. I'm sure sometimes answers are needed very quickly. There's a lot of work that's being produced to try to respond to student move out and all of the changes and all of the program curtailment, et cetera, and moving things online. So I just ask that staff also be patient with their manager. And again, double down on the communications. I don't think it's intended to be micromanaging all the time, but I can understand how it would feel that way.
Do higher level managers need to delegate a number 2 and number 3? Should they get sick? The answer is yes, yes, yes. This is where I think we all need to start looking at, and that's what I meant when I talked about contingency planning, is to know for those at the higher levels, who is your number 2 and number 3, and that may look different depending on what the different functions are. The same way for those who may be at the mid-level, who would come in. So this contingency planning, you had gotten the document to get you thinking about that, but now conversation needs to unfold as we're getting into into the second week of this to begin to think about this and lay this out. And so to have a plan in place will be incredibly important. The other thing we've talked about is then in having a plan, we're going to have that communicated, because you may have a plan internally, but if your stakeholders who interact with you don't know what that plan is, we don't want a situation where then they're not sure who to go to for the level 2 or 3. So how we communicate that out and who your stakeholders are is going to be incredibly important for us to begin thinking about that as well. How will workers who are not critical and or are not permitted on campus, but whose work is primarily on campus, be paid? I'm assuming you said who are workers whose work are not critical or not permitted on campus, but whose work is primarily on campus, be paid. I'll need to learn a little bit more about what workforce we're talking about here in relations to this of not being critical and that are not permitted on campus. I'll need a little bit more information about that, because again, as I said, for right now, the goal is to continue to pay folks. And so, so I would need to know more about this specific question. We also talked about the fact that we have some people who have to be on campus physically, but that may evolve. They may need to be on campus physically for the next week or 2, and then it may be a combination, a hybrid model of telework and some days when they have to be on campus, etc. These are all the things that managers are best suited to figure out what makes the most sense and to begin working with their employees and their team on. A student asked, are there any resources for students who don't have laptops? Good question. For those who do not have laptops, we'll need to know more about that. We are looking at what are some critical areas of need for students, and we'll continue to get that information so that we can look into that. In some cases, we will direct those to the right offices, because we also need to know and make sure that we don't have things that will adversely impact financial aid. So we'll have to work through all of those pieces, but we want to make sure that students have what they need to be able to follow for instruction. And so if they have situations like this, we ask to please have that communicated at the school level, so then we can figure out what's going on and we can know how to best support our students. Things going well now, concern about morale after the initial surge of energy. Continue these conversations, they're helpful. And I have to tell you this is what I think about every minute of the day. I'm just going to be honest. As this unfolds and as we go into sort of more self-isolation, it goes without saying that people's level of anxiety potentially could go up, as social beings. To be away and to not have the level of social contact is going to have different impact on different folks. I know on the staff level, the faculty staff assistance program is something that we want to make sure people are able to access and to avail themselves of. We definitely, I think about this issue of morale on a regular basis. And one of the things that I know we will all have to think about is how from remote we can continue to engage. That may look very different, but we ask people to really be creative about how we stay engaged with each other from remote, and there are a lot. And we'll look at what are some good resources and practices that we know may be beneficial, but we all need to be thinking about this as time goes by to make sure how can we stay and keep morale up. I know for us at the leadership level, we want to continue to engage you in different ways. So webinars will be one way, but we'll continue to engage you in a lot of ways. We have to keep not only the conversations going, we have to check on each other, and we have to make sure that as a community, we are there for each other. And so this is a really, really important question. And also, let me just say right off the bat, it is more than expected and normal that sometimes morale is going to peak and there's going to be valleys, right? This is important. None of us have ever had anything like this. So, and there's not a right or wrong way to respond to it. There really isn't. So that there'll be peak and valleys in terms of morale is to be expected as things unfold. The key is, as that happens, how do we seek, a support? What are all the different ways to seek support, whether it's a colleague that has been a trusted friend or a colleague that you've been able to lean on when you were physically present, is to kind of have some mechanism of checks and how to do that. But know that this will be definitely something that will come up of peak and valleys in our morale. And we know that that is going to be part of the course. And I want to make sure that we don't minimize that, because that is definitely something for all of us to guard for. Question about what happens if the government asks for a lockdown. Great question. If the government asks for a lockdown, we will prepare for that. We're already preparing for different scenarios, whether it's shelter in place, etc. We have to prepare for those different scenarios. And as the team that is looking at university response and preparedness, those are things that are already on my mind, and we're getting some teams to begin to look at that. What does this mean for the university? What does this mean for our daily functioning? What does this mean at all different levels? Those are things that we have to have preparation in place. I always say the best preparation is to not have to ever use it, but you don't want to be caught off guard and you don't want to be caught flat-footed. So those are things that we will be preparing for, and we will continue to communicate. Last night, major team collaboration to support the admit decision letters was a great example of how tech can facilitate large-scale cross-team efforts, even when remote. Yes, kudos to that. Yesterday was a huge day for us at American University. Our admissions team, in collaboration with our Office of Information Technology, were able to get the letters to our newly undergraduate admitted students out yesterday. There were 13,000 plus login online, and I can tell you there were many, many very happy families. And so it was a big deal for a lot of people. Here's a perfect example of collaboration, but I also know there's been tons of collaboration across campus. We want to hear about them. We want to be able to find ways to celebrate that, because this is about the culture of our university and what is the culture that we want and what is the culture that we can engender. But yes, this is a great example of collaboration. Keep them coming, please. One office has scheduled a 30-minute water cooler online time to have fun and boost morale. Wow, great idea. So let me read this again. One office has scheduled a 30-minute water cooler online time to have fun and boost morale. For that team that is doing that, send it our way. We want to create a resource section of here are some good practices and ideas for morale, for staying in touch. So that's a good example. Thank you for sharing that with us. Very, very creative. Suggest a Healthy You host virtual meditation or wellness event to help cope with stress. And Beth says, yes, they are. So we'll need that information pushed out. But again, a Healthy You apparently is doing virtual meditation or wellness event to help cope with stress. Great idea. Again, something that we can all use. The other thing I've been hearing from a lot of people, and I know I can say that for myself, I've been walking a lot. I know just because of everything that's going on with self-isolation and so forth, I have to say I've been putting in more steps than I probably have ever put in, something that I should have been doing way back and had not gotten to it. So I know many of us have been trying to do ways to get out of our homes, find ways to stretch, and particularly for those with children, I've been hearing a lot of you saying that you're taking long walks with them to help them sort of de-stress as well. So those things are happening on the health level and just as ways to cope. Virtual coffee hour. I like that idea and would like to know more about that. I'm intrigued by the virtual coffee or tea hour. So let us know how you're doing that again. This whole thing about the water cooler and the virtual coffee hour and the virtual meditation and everything, we want to hear more about that. A team of us this morning were talking about having hashtag and some of them pets, hashtag about favorite music and all of that, things to kind of help people know that in the midst of all of this, we do need to find time for laughter, time to be able to rest, and recuperate, but also time to really, in many ways, find the light part of this as folks, because it's a lot coming all at once for all of us. So keep those ideas coming, please. Anything else before? So again, we're hearing from folks. We're trying to balance things. There is, again, there's no playbook for this. We're going to continue to, in many ways, engage each other on what are some good ideas around that. We're hearing things around morale and making sure that we continue to boost morale and continue to keep the morale up. We're hearing that it's important to you to continue to engage. We will do it in the different ways. I know many of you are doing it in your teams with virtual teams, but we're going to continue with webinars and other things. We will make sure to continue to do that. 10-minute team huddle every day is another idea that came up. So this 10-minute team huddle every day, chat all day, plus add questions like what you had for lunch, virtual happy hour. So I'm hearing a theme here: virtual coffee hour, virtual happy hour, virtual meditation, virtual water cooler, virtual yoga. So that's good. That's all important things. Very good. Folks, again, like I said, it's day by day, hour by hour on many levels. We continue to figure this out together. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear, I know there's so many great ideas that are going around this campus and beyond. So we want to hear more about those, and we want to be able to respond as quickly as we can to all of you as much as possible. I know that this is day 3, day 4 for many, and we're still continuing to learn. The only other thing I would say is that as things progress, let's stay in touch. Let's hear from you all. And also, as you put ideas forward, if you have suggestions, please don't hesitate to put those suggestions out to us as well. We are here to try to listen and to try to flex as much as possible, knowing that we're still in the learning mode here. We haven't figured it all out, and we're not going to pretend that we figured it all out, but we're going to try our best as much as we can. With that said, it is 3:56, and I'm going to see if there's one more question to take before, and comments. There's a comment that I want to read, and then after that, we will probably close for the day. Let's see what else is here. It is teams meeting at lunch. Time to eat together is another idea that's come up. WhatsApp group chat is one that is being used a lot. Virtual hours for students, staffing to check in. These are some of the ideas. We're going to continue to collect those ideas and find a place where people can find that as a resource place. But again, keep those ideas coming. And more than anything else, thank you to each and every one of you. Be safe. Please continue to be healthy, and let's continue to follow the guidances that were being provided around social distancing and all of those things. But thank you for making the time, and have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday afternoon to all. Thanks again.